too easy, I think, today in our culture to kind of run when things are uncomfortable or hard. And so get good at staying in. I think it's um, good practice for the rest of your life.
What's up, beautiful people? Welcome to the Dear Young Athlete podcast, where we talk to coaches and athletes about their journeys and what advice they would have for their younger selves. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. I'm a speaker, author, and aspiring Paralympian. I've had the privilege and the opportunity to interview over 25 high-level leaders that share their stories and their insights on leadership and how to be successful. We have another great episode coming right up, so let's get into it. What's up, beautiful people? Today I am joined by a very, very, very special guest. We've been trying to have this conversation for a while. I'm glad we could finally make it happen. The man I get to interview today, he played Division I football. He's now a collegiate head football coach and actually was the conference coach of the year in his conference this past year. Above all that, though, he is a husband, he's a father, and he's a man of God. I can't wait to have this conversation. Without further ado, Mike McElroy, aka Coach Mac. Coach, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. So, you're a college head football coach. You played college football, but I always like to bring it back to the beginning. How did you fall in love? How did you fall in love with sports?
Yeah, I think growing up, my dad was a college athlete, and so growing up, that was just kind of always a part of something that we did. My sister and I, lots of games in the backyard, lots of games with friends in the neighborhood, and then that kind of led into high school where I played football, basketball, baseball, and actually thought I was going to be a basketball player in college. But there's not a lot of need for slow 6 foot white kids that can't really jump. So found my way onto the football field, played for an unbelievable football program in high school and a legendary head coach, and kind of spurred my love for the game. And again, was able to kind of find my way into playing in college, and again, fell in love with it probably even more there of just kind of what it requires and what it calls out of you. And so, yeah, that was kind of the start of the sport journey, but it was something that, was kind of, we were always doing growing up, was traveling and doing all the youth this and that and playing AU and summer baseball and basketball and football. It was just kind of constant, kind of what we did.
Yeah, bring us into your world a little bit in high school. What it was like kind of balancing those sports and the whole basketball football thing, and then how you ended up kind of selecting a college.
Yeah. So, I went to high school, about 1,200 people in West Michigan, and had a really good wrestling program. But I wasn't tough enough to wrestle. So I was a basketball guy. We were pretty average at basketball. And so it's just like, the winning piece, I think, was important to me. And we didn't win a lot of games, but I kind of thought I was good until I realized, man, we're not winning a lot of games, and I'm on the court a lot. And so maybe that correlates to something I need to figure out a little bit. But then football, again, played for a guy who's in the Michigan Hall of Fame, head coach Noel Dean, who just kind of for me was the epitome of toughness and had an unbelievable job of just kind of calling good stuff out of people. And so, we were really successful. I think we were 33-3 in my 3 years of varsity football. Won a state title, played in a state semifinal game, and so I just had a ton of success. I played with a quarterback who, was an Elite 11 quarterback, and the kid kind of got me a scholarship. Is kind of what I like to say. And so that made the decision easy when I think it came down to it. And I was like, all right, here are some opportunities for football or for basketball. And again, the football piece was something I wanted to chase at the highest level, and was fortunate to get opportunity at Southern Illinois to go pursue that.
Awesome. A couple of questions in there. So were you a receiver then?
I went into college as a receiver, and then got switched to safety in camp. So maybe that tells you how athletically skilled my hands were, how good my hands were.
No, everyone wants to play receiver at
Right,
first, and
right.
usually about most of them end up playing defense. But
hmm
um, what was it about your coach? Now that you're a grown man coaching, raising kids, like what about this coach kind of stuck with you to this day?
Yeah, he was an old school guy, just from a toughness and an accountability piece. You weren't going to sneak anything past him. He was kind of anti-hype, anti kind of trying to be cool. We were gonna like our thing was like, man, we are gonna line up and punch you in the face, and then we're gonna do it again and again and again. I remember we played in the state title game, and I think we won the state title game by 3 touchdowns or so. And I remember the beginning of the game, he said, after we win this game, he's like, I don't want you to celebrate. He's like, I want you to walk over there and shake their hands, and then we'll celebrate in the locker room. And so that for me was just like this guy had this expectation of like, hey, this is how we do stuff. Expect to win. You guys are well prepared. And so I think he taught me a ton about that, of just like kind of the discipline piece, stuff that obviously is still, I think, carried with me here today.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about your coaching journey, but would you say that kind of mentality has influenced the way that you coach now?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think like I've always been attracted to guys that maybe I don't know if have an edge is the right word, but I played in college for Jerry Kill, who certainly had an edge about him. And so I think for me it's like that was an attractive piece. I think especially in the beginning, just because I saw the fruit of man doing things the right way, with discipline and with hard work. And so for me, I think that definitely has molded and shaped me and kind of who I am and how I go about coaching.
Yeah, you said the words anti-hype, and I feel like
Mhm.
we're in a social media age that we didn't grow up in, but more than ever, guys want the cool picture, the cool video, the cool post. How do you bridge that kind of anti-hype mentality with the current climate that we're in?
Yeah, it's hard. I think especially in the world of 18 to 22-year-olds where it's everything is look at me and I got to get mine. Man, we talk a lot of time with our guys about the idea of like man dying to yourself and what does that look like? And again, it's not about you. And it can't be just about you. Like we want you to be successful. We want you to strive to be really good. But man, it can't be about you. And so I think for me, it's like that's a huge battle that we fight with our guys of like, man, how do we make this about us? Coach Jay, who was the guy who I worked for 8 years here, talked about like, man, build you for us, right? Like give your gifts away for free. And so it's this idea of like, man, we live in a world where it's like I got to get mine and take mine and make it about me. And again, I think that's so countercultural. It's like, man, can you give your gifts away? Can you build you and get as good as you can and then give it to us? Is such a cool way, I think. And that's, I think, the appeal of a team, right? Is like we want to be with guys and on a place where it's like, man, it's going to be bigger than me and about getting mine. And again, I think that's when teams are most successful is when they can give their gifts away.
Yeah, how does that play into your we're gonna get back into your story, but I want to pause here because I think that is really powerful. Like, how does it play into recruiting, and does that help you kind of weed out guys that you don't want
Yeah.
and get the guys that you do want?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think for us in recruiting is just try to be really honest with guys because it's not sexy to say, hey, it's not going to be about you and you're not going to be the man, right? Like every kid wants to like a lot of kids want to hear that. Like, oh, am I going to be? And it's like, no, you're not. And like if you're not okay with that, you should go somewhere else. And so I think we've come to learn that early on. I think you're trying to just be as attractive as you can to as many people, and I think what happens that usually turns out bad for both parties, right? Like I'm pissed that they're here, and they're pissed that I'm not giving them what they want, and so we've gotten to this point where it's like, man, like we're going to tell you the truth about who we are, and it's not that we don't want you to want to be good. It's not that we don't want guys that can play right away, but I think setting the table early of like, man, like this isn't going to be about you. We're not going to adapt to you. You're going to adapt to who we are and what we are. I think guys who are attracted to that are the right guys and end up being the guys that are really successful for us because they understand like, hey, man, this is about dying to my needs and my wants and my wishes. Right? Jesus talks about that. Like, man, you want to follow me, like you die to yourself, carry your cross daily, right? Which is doing the work and then follow, which we talk about as submission. Like, can you die to yourself? Can you do the work and then can you follow? Like that's a pretty cool call in life, and that's a pretty cool call for how do you be successful in college athletics.
I love that. Take us into the college, the glory days, your experience playing college football. Like, what was that like? Are you redshirt? Are you on the bench for a while? Do you crack the lineup? Like, bring us into that world. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the episode, I want to ask you to go on whatever platform you're on and follow and subscribe. Give us a rating and review us and help this podcast reach more people. You can head to the website 1020words.com/DYA. That's TEN20words.com/DYA to learn more about us, check out our merchandise, or figure out how you can have me come speak to your team or program, or potentially be a guest on the podcast. I look forward to connecting with you. Let's get back into the episode.
Yeah. So again, came in as a wide receiver, and we had a bunch of weird injuries my freshman year. And so I got switched over to defensive back, strong safety, probably was about 2 weeks before the first season, and ended up kind of getting into the two deep there as a freshman, and then ended up starting about 6 games my freshman year. And so it was a fun experience. We played in what did we play in? We played in the Final Four, I think, my freshman year. And then we had a coaching change. Coach Kill left and took another job. In comes another coach, Dale Lennon, who again have a ton of respect for. And I was in a weird spot. I was kind of like, hey man, am I gonna transfer out? Am I gonna stay? Go back home? I was 10 hours away from home. But wanted to kind of give Coach Lennon a chance, and he was great to me. And so yeah, ended up as a kind of 3.5 year starter there. I actually broke my ankle my second game of my senior year, and so took a medical redshirt and came back for a fifth year. And so yeah, so I had an awesome experience. Won 2 conference titles there, and then some accolades here and there, but it was just a good experience. I loved it. Loved competing at that level and got to play in some pretty cool places along with it.
Yeah, some accolades here and there. What tell us? All conference. What
I
does
was all
that mean?
conference. I was academic All American my senior year,
Nice.
and then there was a couple of kind of top 10 safety type of deals. I was preseason nominated for a preseason player of the year the year I broke my ankle, and so
Oh,
that was or on the watch list or whatever that looks like. And so yeah, that was again some fun stuff to be a part of, and just a testament I think to the team that we were on was pretty good and played some pretty high level ball, which helps.
yeah. So that's kind of like FBS or FCS, right?
FCS, yep,
Yeah.
yep,
So, but were you playing some non-conference like big
yeah,
dogs and
yep, yep. So we played a night game at Ole Miss. We went to Marshall, which was fun. I broke my ankle playing a night game at the University of Illinois, and then yeah, we beat my freshman year. We went up to Northern Illinois and beat those guys, which was
nice?
a fun deal.
What do you have any memories like big names that you guarded or picked off or you know?
Yeah, I dropped an interception from Joe Flacco my freshman year, and then I remember we played Victor Cruz was at the University of Massachusetts when we played there. So two of the probably the more famous guys that we played against.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. So what happened? You take this fifth year and you graduate. Are you just done with football at that point? Do you think maybe you still want to play?
Yeah, I mean, I knew pretty early I probably wasn't an NFL guy. I kind of had maxed out kind of who I was and what I was, I think, for my talent level, and was pretty beat up body wise. And so, I got engaged to my now wife going into my senior year in the summer, and then she wasn't gonna. When I got hurt, she was like, "Well, I'm not gonna wait another extra year for you to do this." And so I wanted to play more. So we got married. She moved down there. So we spent that fall semester of my fifth year married, and then once that happened, or once football was done, got a job teaching at a local high school. Was teaching and coaching there in the high school world for a couple of years.
Yeah. What was it? Well, a couple of questions there. Like, what was it like? You kind of gave your whole life to. I mean, what's that? Shut the door, please, buddy. Those are very cool. Here, come here. Wait, come here. My my boys, I'll edit this out, but they are signed up for flag football and they just
Nice,
got cleats. So he came
nice,
and wanted to show
love
me
it,
his cleats.
love it.
Um, okay. So you kind of give your whole life to this game, you know, three sports and then eventually one sport be your whole life, you're on a team, you've got a schedule. What was it like for you hanging it up, being done, and you know, how did that, you know, with your identity, was that a struggle? Was it easy for you? What was that like?
Yeah, I think the biggest kind of identity check for me came when I got hurt. I've kind of had all these things and kind of was chasing all these different probably accolades and idols, and then you get hurt and you're kind of like, man, who am I and what am I and what do I stand for? And so I think I really had a really seminal moment kind of when I did get hurt there, like, man, what is this going to be about? Who am I? And so I'm glad I had that. Like, at the time it sucked, but I'm glad I had that as a 21, 22-year old instead of a 35-year old of kind of who am I? What am I looking for? And so I think that really helped kind of straighten the ship as far as kind of what I was looking for afterwards. And yeah, obviously the once it's done, right, you go from being your whole life is structured and you're told when to go everywhere and do everything to now like, man, you've got to kind of figure it out. And so, I think guys either go one of two ways, right? Like the discipline carries over, or, they kind of have this newfound freedom and they kind of tank it. And so, again, grateful for the discipline that was instilled in me, but also grateful for like the tough stuff with the injury and being done for the year that I had to go through and had to do a lot of work personally about and who am I? What do I stand for? What do I believe? Like, is this Jesus thing true? Is it real? Or is it kind of just like, it was kind of a little magic genie I'd rub when I needed to feel good. And so, again, that was all a lot of work that, again, with the help of some mentors, I'm glad I got to go through younger, and kind of set the course for kind of what was ahead.
Yeah, it's like you almost had kind of a soft launch with the injury,
Right.
so
Right.
that then you had to wrestle with some of that stuff before, it was officially over.
Right.
What was it that made you, well, one, what were you teaching?
I was a health and PE teacher. So I was teaching middle
Nice.
school health, and then I was also I spent 1 year in like a behavior disorder and a special needs classroom.
Okay. MP.
Yeah, and PE, and I did high school PE, and I did like middle school. kind of a little bit of everything there for a while.
Yeah, were you playing dodgeball with kids
Yeah,
and
that's
dunking
right.
on them
That's
and
right. It
all
was a
that?
lot of you can't. There's no corporal punishment, but there's nothing that's saying that you can't hit him with a dodgeball a couple of times. So that was the trick.
What made you know that you wanted to go into coaching? Like, did you know that, or was the opportunity kind of came up?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always wanted to coach. I think, my dad was a high school coach, was a high school softball coach for 18 years, in our hometown, or 15 years. Oh, a long time. And so, I think it was for me, it was always just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna teach and coach. That's what I'm gonna do. So, I think, I knew that going into college, that's what I wanted to be.
So, did you think like, oh, I'm going to teach and coach forever, or what made you kind of shift into the college world?
Yeah, I told myself I would never coach college athletics. Just from I think the mentality and kind of the hours that those guys kept that I saw, I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. I had such a great high school experience. But I was like, man, this is what I'm going to do forever. And then, I remember I was driving home, when my wife and I were living in Southern Illinois, and I got a call from my old college coach, Jerry Kelly. Said, hey, I've got an opening, here at Minnesota. He was at Minnesota at the time. And this was I remember he called me on a Wednesday night, and he said, hey, I got to know by Friday morning if you want this or not. And so I went home, and my wife and I talked about it. We'd never been to Minnesota in our life. And but I think, she was excited about the opportunity of jobs and kind of bigger city and some of that stuff. And I was excited too about, I was coaching at the smallest section of school in Illinois, and, the option or the chance to be on a Big Ten sideline was pretty cool. So I called him back on a Friday, and Friday morning said, I'm in. He said, all right, I need you here for workouts on Monday morning. So I got in the car and drove up to Minnesota, and my wife moved the rest of our stuff up, a few weeks later.
So, what was that like from just was it some of the nightmare of schedule that you imagined, but then it turned out to be a positive experience, or what was that
Yeah.
like?
I mean, I think it was a shock for me. I go from like, I had 29 kids on our team, and on the whole football team, that's ninth grade through 12th grade, to, you're coaching four guys that are going to end up getting drafted. So I think like it was a kind of a wild turnaround. But I think, yeah, being a GA, really hard. You spend a lot of hours guarding a desk and doing really pointless, stupid stuff, and you also learn a ton of football. And so it's one of those things. I was talking about it somebody earlier this week about, it's something that, was awesome and I'd never do again. So it's like, I don't know how I'd sum it up other than like, it was great for me, great learning, but I would never do it again. So.
Why do you think Coach Kill called you?
I don't know. That's still something that, like, I spent 4 months with the guy. He coached me my freshman year, and then he left in December. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a God thing. I think, like, man, like, obviously he had some plans to get me to Minnesota, and that was it. And so, but yeah, I never really asked. It was all right. Here we go. So I think that's kind of one of those ones where I said I'd never coach college football, and God just laughed at me. So,
Yeah, I think it is funny. Like looking back on my life, I see, oh, I said I would never go to Bethel. I went to Bethel. I worked at Bethel.
mm,
I can't get away from Bethel now.
mhm.
Um, so it is funny. I always say like be careful what you say you'll never do
Right,
because God,
right,
he's got a sense of humor.
for
But
sure.
the reason I ask you that is like in my own experience, right? Um, I coached high school football for 7 years. My first coaching job was given by my high school coach. Um, he later became the athletic director, and he's the first person that hired me to speak and paid me for it, which is now what I do. Um, but I always think about having interviewed so many coaches, so many of them, they get a job because of their coach. And, you know, if you could say, you say, like, oh, I don't know why he picked me. Maybe you had some qualities that made him believe that you'd be a good coach. You now sitting in that position, what who would you look for, like, of qualities of your players that you would say someday call them and say, hey, I need a coach?
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's like I've actually on our staff right now of four full-time guys. Three of them played for me, and so I think it's like one of those things where you're always looking for kind of different qualities that kind of even each other out. But I think it's like for me now, it's like, man, you want guys that can figure it out and guys that don't have a lot of ego, and guys that are just going to find a way. And so I think, like, man, if you can surround yourself, and I think you can identify that a lot of times in your players. Like, man, how do you handle disappointment? How do you handle not being the man? How do you handle being the man? How do you handle, man, just doing the work? Are you consistent? And so I think trying to think through those and spot those early on in guys, and because again, those are the guys that I think are going to be most successful in your program, and not necessarily have the biggest stats or whatever that looks like, but like, man, like guys who are going to, like, man, these guys are going to be successful in whatever they do, just because a couple of those tangible things that you kind of see play out and tease out in the midst of those 4 years when you're getting kind of punched in the face and knocked down, and you've got highs and lows, and you kind of just see how they handle it. I think for me, it's like being able to see that firsthand, builds a lot of trust. I think of like, all right, this guy can handle some stuff, and we can put him in a position of power where he's going to have to lead and care for other young guys.
Yeah, I find it, I mean, interesting. Like, you didn't say 40-yard dash time or how many touchdowns they scored. And it's like some talent is just like God given. Sometimes stats are just being in the right place at the right time. And but there are things like humility that you mentioned, how you handle disappointment, how you don't have ego, are you consistent, can you solve problems? Like, that's something I love about football and sports in general. It's like you don't have to be the most talented person to have those qualities. Anyone can have those qualities. And those are what matter when, you play that last game. Um, Nobody really remembers how good you were, maybe a few people, right? But it's like every year, something I've been thinking about is like every year you have new national champions, you have new gold medalists, you have every year you've got new people coming through, and you forget about them in a few years. But your character, that's the thing that actually outlasts you. And yeah, I love that. So for those that don't know, you stepped in as head coach for Coach Jay, who is kind of a legendary figure around Bethel. A lot of guys I've had on my podcast played for Coach Jay. He's had just an amazing impact. He had a lot of success. What was it like for you stepping into that role? Was there a level of nerves, like being at big shoes to fill, or was there confidence because you learned so much, like, or both? What was that like?
Yeah. it's something that weighed heavy, I think, on my mind of like being under him again for 8 years and just seeing it. And again, I think the guy finished top 30 all time in NCAA history and wins. So it's not like you're walking into a dumpster fire. Usually jobs are open for a reason, and it's because they're not good. And it's unique, and that this one was he had just done an unbelievable job of building foundation and then having tons of success. And so, yeah, I think there was a weightiness to it. I think from how he led both spiritually, how he developed young guys, and also like, yeah, they're really good for a long time. And so, yeah, there was, I think, some anxiety of like, gosh, like this is. I think the hardest part was like Coach Jay and I, from a heart level, are very similar as far as what we believe about young guys and about how we should coach. But I think very different personality wise. And so that was a unique thing of like, how do we do this transition well? And the best advice I got was from a guy who actually played for him, and he mentioned the idea of like David and King Saul. So when David's going to fight Goliath, King Saul tries to give him his armor, and David had to have the confidence to say like, hey, like I got to do this my way with my slingshot. My like he couldn't fight in Saul's armor, and so this idea of like same way of like you're stepping in and you have to have like the confidence to be like, hey, I'm not Coach Jay. I can't do it his way. Like there's certain aspects of the program that we're going to carry over. But the way he led was unique to him. And so for me, like the way I lead has to be unique to me. Otherwise it's not going to last. And guys are going to see through it. And so I think that was a helpful, it's kind of when that moment clicked for me of like, man, I got to do this the way I believe in it. And the way I think I've been kind of made to lead guys is unique and is different. And so I think having confidence in that and knowing that like, man, like I got to do this the way is authentic to me. Otherwise it's going to kind of crash and burn.
Yeah, I love that David and Saul's armor analogy. Um, you've been head coach now 2 seasons or three?
Yep.
Two.
2 seasons. Yep.
So 2 seasons, two deep playoff runs. Last season, one of the best seasons ever in Bethel history, to my knowledge, if not the best. Um, Coach of the year, I know you're a humble guy, you don't like bragging about accolades, but I mean that's kind of a crazy, you expect like new coach comes in, you have a few rebuilding years, and I know you came internally, so that's a little different, but why has there been so much success from your vantage point?
Yeah, I think there's a there's a really cool alignment with our staff. We've got great guys that care deeply about each other, care deeply about being good, care deeply about molding young guys. And I think we just have an alignment and a buy-in from our guys that is just really cool. Guys that care deeply about again being good, care deeply about who they're becoming, care deeply about man, let's do this thing the right way. And again, we talk a lot about man, like a long obedience in the same direction of like it's gonna just take time and time and time, and it's going to shape us and mold us as we go in that. But I think it's just been fun to see our guys buy into that. And again, I think when it's not fake and it's authentic and it's what we're trying to live out as a staff every day, those guys can see that. And like you said, and we talked about earlier, it's like they're either going to be attracted to that or they're going to run away from that. And like both are okay. Like I want you to either jump in or I want you to go away. And so I think that we've had, we haven't lost many guys over the last 2 years, and it's hard. We make it hard on these guys to be a part of us. We ask a lot out of them, and I think just like the more and more I'm in this, like young people want that. Like young men want to be called to something and want to be held accountable to stuff, and want to be loved and want to be man. Like I think there's a call and a need for that for young guys in our culture right now, and so man, like what a cool time to be a football coach. To where guys are thirsty, I think for man, just like tough stuff that's going to grow them and shape them and staying in it and being called to a high standard and also just knowing that they're going to be cared and loved for regardless of if they have 18 touchdowns or if they have 8 snaps in their career. When you could be a part of something bigger than you, there's a pretty cool call there, I think, on your heart.
Yeah, Well, we won't count you losing a player to the University of Wisconsin.
I said a couple. I said we had lost a couple. I didn't say we didn't lose any. So yeah, we lost a couple good ones. Um,
Yeah, I wouldn't count that. That's a good, you didn't lose them to St. John's. Um,
right.
so what would you say, like, if someone asks you what are the keys, if you could summarize, to make a strong culture? Like, what is it about the culture? I mean, and maybe you just answered it, but if there's more about why guys buy in, why they care so much for each other, what give us the playbook. Hey man, cool shirt. Oh, thank you, man. What is that logo? I've never seen it before. Yeah, it's actually based on First Timothy 4:8, which says physical training is good, but training in godliness is better, having value in this life and the next. The 8 is like an infinity because when you have a relationship with God, it lasts forever. Oh, you believe in Jesus or what? Yeah, bro, I play the game all for God's glory. He changed my life and I want to do what I can to glorify Him. Is it a brand or whose logo is that? Yeah, it's actually the theme verse for a cool podcast I listen to called Dear Young Athlete. It's a sports leadership podcast. You should check it out. So, where can I get one? Yeah, you just go to their website, 1020words.com/DYA. That's TEN20words.com/DYA. If you use the code DYA20 with all caps, you can get 20% off your first order. They have t-shirts, shorts, hoodies, crew necks, you name it, anything you want. Yeah, man, I mean, I guess I would like to learn more. Oh, yeah, man, we got Bible study later with some of the guys if you want to come check it out. All right, bro. See you later. All right, bro. Peace.
Yeah, I mean, I think every year is different. I think I wish there was a playbook. I'd make a lot of money and I could just write a book and call it. But I think so much of it is unique to the guys. Again, I think so much of it is kind of ever changing and evolving as far as how do we verbalize it. I think the key for us is like, man, I think being able to cast a vision for guys like, hey, here's who we want to be, here's where we want to go. And then just aligning with that and like holding to that. Like that's the like I think the work is in the every day. It's easy to tweet about it or write about it or post about it. And I think for us, it's just like, man, how do you continually do the work, caring about guys, of setting a vision, and then of holding guys to like, hey, here's who we said we were going to be. Coach Jay's phrase would be like, hey, we said like, what kind of man do you want to be? Write it on a rock and let's go. And so it's this idea of like who we want to be in the midst of culture that's ever changing and ever flowing and everything is cool. It's like, man, this is who we said we are going to be. And I think for us, it helps being a part of a Christ-centered university. Like, because again, that's what we can base our stuff on, and it doesn't change and it doesn't ebb and flow. But man, I think it's like there's a call to toughness and there's a call to discipline and discipleship there. And again, even to what we talked about earlier, it's got to be bigger than yourself because it's just about you. The minute it gets hard, you're going to leave. And the minute it's uncomfortable, and the minute it's not going your way, you're going to leave. And it's like, man, countercultural in the fact that like, man, I'm going to stay even if it doesn't go my way, or I'm going to fight through this thing, even if it's not maybe what I thought it was going to be. Those are the coolest stories for me. And we have stories of like that all the time from our guys. Like, man, like I never started a game. And yet, man, we had a kid who never started a game and played in every game over his 4 years. Like to be able to have that kind of just endurance of like, man, it wasn't about him. And he was a huge part of who we had been, and left as one of the winningest senior groups of all time here. And was a guy who just like, man, he just showed up and was consistent every day and never made it about him. And it's like, man, if you can find a group of guys like that, you've got a pretty good chance.
Yeah, I mean, what what I love about college sports, and people say like they come in as boys and leave as men. You know, you're training men to be leaders, husbands, fathers, people that don't quit and give up and leave whenever it's hard or it didn't go their way. How much of that comes implicitly, and how much of it do you guys actually like talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it every day. I think for us, like we talk about one of the keys or one of the kind of things that we want to mark our program is this idea of initiation. And we've kind of gone away from that and kind of the Western culture, but this idea, it used to be like, how do I know I'm a man? How do I know I'm ready to go? It's like, well, you got to leave. You would leave your family. You would go do something hard in the midst of people that care about you and elders that are going to speak into you and have been through some stuff. And you're going to be shaped and formed. And then you're going to be sent back into the city, into the community to go affect it and have an impact on it. And I think it's a cool kind of picture of what college football can be. You got to be really intentional about it. But like, man, you get to bring these young guys in. They're away from home. They're doing hard stuff. They're getting literally and figuratively punched in the face for 4 years of like, man, going through tough stuff and wrestling through stuff and got to figure out who I am in the midst of the hard stuff and trials and triumphs. I got to figure out what I believe and who I am. And then hopefully, if you have coaches and mentors around them that are there shaping them, they're getting shaped and they're getting poured into and they're getting encouraged. And then again, once they leave, now they're sent back into community, into their homes, into their work life, into their churches to go lead and go kind of raise the next generation up. And so um, maybe it's a romantic view of college football, but I think that for me is kind of the driving piece of who we want to be and why do we do this. And why do we call so much out of our guys is because like, man, this is the call. And this is how I think we affect culture. I think this is how we affect communities. I think it's how we affect the world is like by building up strong young men that can go do that. And there's just in kind of wherever they're sent after they leave here.
Obviously, for those that may not know, Bethel is a Christian university. You talked about some of your faith and the Bible throughout our conversation, but bring us kind of into your spiritual journey and like how did your faith in Christ become real for you? And then how does that influence the way you live now?
Yeah, I think grew up in a Christian home. My grandfather was a pastor, and so it was kind of always there. I think it took me going away to college for it to be mine. I was 10 hours away from home, and had to figure out like, man, am I gonna jump into this and agree to this, or am I gonna kind of like just kind of let it be my parents? And so I think again through some mentors there and through some of that stuff was really able to make it mine. And then yeah, I think since then it's just been a journey of kind of refinement and I love Paul talks about, man, 1 degree at a time we are being changed. And so I think it's a slow burn and 1 degree at a time we are trying to become more and more like him. And so I think that, that's always kind of been, Eugene Peterson talks about a long obedience in the same direction of like, that is the call. And I think I've had to kind of settle into that of like, this is not going to be all at once. I think once, especially you're in your late 30s and 40s, there's not a lot of like, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but like not a lot of like big aha moments, but man, just kind of daily simple reminders of like, all right, man, this is the path and this is the call. So I think trying to just trust that and continue to pour that into our guys and kind of build who we are as a program around kingdom stuff and it's not again it's kind of like we talked about with my coach it's anti-hype. It's just like, man, this is who we want to be all the time consistently, and it's and try to make that appealing to our guys in the way that coaches live and do our stuff. And again, I think it's attractive when you can do it the right way. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said earlier, like, you leave college football and guys tend to go one of two ways. It's like, do those things carry over? In
Mhm.
college is a special time because you're living with your teammates, you're working out together every day, practice, you gotta maintain grades, and you build kind of these habits, but it's like life then is not that way. There's you go from walking around the cafeteria, right? Like, give me the chicken and the,
Hmm.
whatever you want. And then life kind of hits you where it's like, okay, well, now I have to work and pay bills and cook and do dishes. And um, you hope that discipline and that sticks with guys. But I think also the same is true, like in a spiritual sense. Like in college, you have probably, like you said, more aha moments and big things, big changes, but you hope that when you leave and you don't have chapel 2, 3 days a
Hmm.
week and you don't have a on campus prayer thing or whatever. Like you gotta find that on your own. And I love that idea of like long obedience in the same direction or 1 degree, and maybe you've seen that like if a flight
Hmm.
is 1 degree off course, it will land like instead of New York, it will land like somewhere way off of there. I'm terrible with geography, so I'm not gonna
Hmm.
act like I know, but yeah, I love that idea and just that focus that you have on building that foundation. That when guys leave, Bethel is a Christian school, but not everyone comes there because of that, right? Especially
Right.
now that you have such a good football program. Like some people is just like, hey, I want to play football and I'll write the little
Mhm.
faith statement to get
Right.
in. How do
Right.
you how do you think about, those guys coming into your program and how to impact them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing of like, man, like I'm not the gatekeeper, but we're just gonna be really honest with who we are, and again, we talk about it. Best picture I've ever seen is like, it's like we're all on a road and we're all heading north, and you might be going 50 miles an hour, or 2 miles an hour, or 3 miles an hour. You might be swerving. You might even be in a ditch. Get out of the ditch and let's go. And as long as you're on that road heading north, we're in great shape. The minute you start going the other way is when we have to let you go. And so I think that's kind of a good analogy, I think, for our coaches and our guys of like, man, you don't have to have this figured out. No one does. But we got to all be going in the same direction. And so, because again, some guys are going to come in, super mature in it. Some guys are going to come in going, and I'm attracted to this and I don't know why. And so we want to present it to them, and we want to hold all of them kind of to the same standard of here's who I think we're called to be and expected to be.
Yeah. Well, there's kind of two ways that I would close these conversations. And one is in the introduction of this podcast, I say, growing up, I thought life was all about sports, but I know now sports are all about life. And so the lessons of sports that apply to life, if you could kind of pick one thing and how you've seen it apply to life, what would that be?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I think all of it of like, man, you kind of everything of us. What I love about football, man, is I think we talk about this a lot of like you need everybody, right? You need football so cool because it's like you need fat kids and fast kids and slow kids and strong kids and it takes all of us. And so I think it's like, man, it's a pretty cool picture of I think what heaven's going to look like, and I think what community looks like. Of like, man, it's going to be all of us kind of working together for a common goal. And so um, that for me again is like what I love about this is like, and it's going to take all body types and all speeds and all sizes, which is I think is a pretty cool call for us in community.
Well, I love that. Actually, This is pretty unpopular, but I refuse to play fantasy football kind of because of that. Like, what I love about football is you need 11 people doing a job to make
Mhm.
something happen. And when we only celebrate, five of them, it's like, I think we miss the point. And so, no shade to anyone that
Mhm.
plays fantasy. It's just for me, it's like everything I love about football. It feels counterintuitive to it, and yeah, it's funny. Like my nephew, who's in high school, he'll watch NFL Red Zone and like is switching back and forth between all the games. And
Mhm.
I'm like, dude, turn this off. Like I like to watch
Right.
one game and see how everything is
Right.
working and flowing. And yeah, really, but to your point, it's such a beautiful metaphor for life of like everyone has value, everyone has a role to play, and it's not about playing a certain role, it's about playing your role the best you can. And that's beautiful. If we can all live that way, the world will be a good place.
Absolutely.
The last thing I have for you is you're on the Dear Young Athlete podcast. So I ask all my guests to complete the statement, Dear Young Athlete blank. What would you say to your players, to the younger you? What would that be?
Um, Man, I think just stay in when it's tough, because it's going to shape you and mold you. And so it's too easy, I think, today in our culture to kind of run when things are uncomfortable or hard. And so get good at staying in. I think it's um, good practice for the rest of your life. So stay in the midst of trial, in the midst of tough stuff. It's what is going to grow you.
Mm, love it. I love it. Stay in. Might name the episode that.
It's good.
Well, cool. Coach Mac, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing some of your story and some of your wisdom. Any last words for the people?
No, this was good. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. Peace. And there you have it. One more episode in the books. Thank you so much for listening. As a reminder, make sure you subscribe in whatever platform you're on, that you leave a comment and rate and review. And I want to personally thank you for doing that. And I will see you in the next episode. Peace.